afternoon, everyone. This is Patrick Rojas, and in this chapter, we will describe the human reproductive system, the development of offspring, and genetics. Reproductive system has four functions. First is the production of gametes, sperm cell for male and egg cell for female. Second is fertilization. Third is to produce offspring, and fourth is the production of hormones. The male reproductive system is consists of a series of ducts, accessory glands, and several structures. One of these structures is what we call the scrotum. The scrotum is a sac-like structure that surrounds the testis. It is controlled by the muscle what we call the cremaster muscle. Cremaster muscle is a abdominal muscle that is extended to the scrotum. It tends to pull the scrotum near the body in order to obtain warmer temperature. And at low temperature, it pushes away the scrotum in order to obtain cooler temperature. Uh, on the other hand, structure distal to the scrotum is what we call the testis. Testes serve as endocrine gland and exocrine gland for the body. Exocrine gland for producing sperm cell and endocrine gland for producing hormones or testosterone. The outer layer of the testis is what we call um, fibrous connective tissue. This fibrous connective tissue is what we call tunica albuginea extend to the testis in order to form the what we call septa. And septa surrounds the testis and divide it into two and produce 300 to 400 bone tubules. This bone tubules is what we call the seminiferous tubules. Seminiferous tubules is what it is where the sperm cell develop, and the loose connective tissue that surrounds the seminiferous tubules is what we call the Leydig cells. Leydig cells is where the testosterone develop. Meanwhile, um, a distal structure to the testis is what we call the vas deferens. Vas deferens serves as the passage for the fluid came from the testis to the urethra to the passageway of the penis. Epididymis is divided into three: the head part, the body, and the tail. Consequently, sperms sperm cell taken from the head has no ability to penetrate or fertilize eggs and has no ability to motile. And meanwhile, oppositely, sperm cell developed or taken from the tail is has a function for performing both. It can fertilize egg and has a ability for motile. The next part for the epididymis is what we call the vas deferens. Vas deferens is located at the tail of the epididymis and posterior to the testis. Vas deferens is associated with blood cells or blood cells and nerve, and has a function to provide supply to the male reproductive system. The next part is the urethra. Urethra is one of the most important structure within the male reproductive system because it is the main passage or main end for the male reproductive fluid and for the waste from the body. urethra is divided into three: the prostate, the membranous, and the spongy. Prostate extend from the bladder up to the prostate gland. Membranous from the prostate gland up to the perineum, and spongy from the membranous urethra up to the length of the penis.
My topic is all about the female reproductive system. Female reproductive system is designed to carry out several functions. It produces the female egg cells necessary for reproduction, called the ova or oocytes. The system is designed to transport the ova to the site of fertilization. Conception: the fertilization of an egg by a sperm normally occurs in the fallopian tube. The next step for the fertilized egg is to implant into the walls of the uterus, beginning the initial stages of pregnancy. If fertilization or implantation does not take place, the system is designed to menstruate. In addition, the female reproductive system produces female sex hormones that maintains the reproductive cycle. So, what parts make up the female anatomy? The female reproductive anatomy includes parts inside and outside the body. The function of external female reproductive structures or genitals is twofold. First is to enable sperm to enter the body, and second, to protect the internal genital organs from infectious organisms. The main external structures of the female reproductive system includes: one is the labia majora. The labia majora enclose and protect the other external reproductive systems, literally translated as large lips. The labia majora are relatively large and fleshy, and are comparable to scrotum in males. The labia majora contains sweat and oil-secreting glands, and after puberty, the labia majora are covered with hair. Second is the labia minora, literally translated as small lips. The labia minora can be as small or up to 2 inches wide. They lie just inside the labia majora and surround the openings to the vagina and the uterus. Next is the Bartholin's glands. These glands are located beside the vaginal opening and produce the fluid secretion. And lastly, the clitoris. The clitoris where the 2 labia minora meets. It is a small, sensitive protrusion that is comparable to the penis in males. The clitoris is covered by a fold of skin called the prepuce, which is similar to the foreskin at the end of the penis. Like the penis, the clitoris is very sensitive to stimulation and can become erect. The internal reproductive organ in a female include: first is the vagina. The vagina is the canal that joins the cervix, the lower part of the uterus, to the outside of the body. It is also known as the birth canal. Second is the uterus, or the womb. The uterus is a hollow, pear-shaped organ that is the home of a developing fetus. The uterus is divided into 2 parts. First is the cervix, which is the lower part that opens into the vagina. And the main body of the uterus called the corpus. The corpus can easily expand to hold the developing baby. A channel through the cervix allows sperm to enter and menstrual blood to exit. And lastly, the fallopian tube. These are narrow tubes that are attached to the upper part of the uterus and serve as a tunnel of the ova or egg cells to travel from ovaries to the uterus. Conception: the fertilization of an egg by a sperm normally occurs in the fallopian tubes. The fertilized egg then moves to the uterus when it implants into the lining of the uterine wall. In puberty, the initial change that results in puberty is most likely maturation of hypothalamus. In girls, puberty, which typically begins between ages 11 and 13 and is largely completed by age 16, is marked by their first episode of menstrual birth, which is called the menarche. During the puberty, the vagina, uterus, uterine tubes, and external genitalia begins to enlarge. Adipose tissue is deposited in the breast and around the hips, causing them to enlarge and assume an adult form. In addition, pubic and axillary hair grows. The development of sexual drive is also associated with puberty. So what happens during menstrual cycle? Females of reproductive age experience cycles of hormonal activity that repeat at about 1 month intervals. With every cycle, a woman's body prepares for a potential pregnancy, whether or not that is a woman's intention. The term menstruation refers to the periodic shedding of the uterine lining. Menstrue means monthly. So the average menstrual cycle takes about 28 days and occurs in phases: the follicular phase, the ovulatory phase or ovulation, and the luteal phase. There are 4 major hormones that is involved in menstrual cycle: the follicle-stimulating hormones, luteinizing hormones, estrogen, and progesterone. Hormones means the chemical that stimulate or regulate the activity of cells or organs. So, follicular phase of menstrual cycle. This phase starts the day of your period. During the follicular phase of the menstrual cycle, the following events occurs. First, 2 hormones, follicle-stimulating hormones and the luteinizing hormones, are released from the brain and travel through the blood into the ovaries. Next, the hormone stimulates the growth of about 15 to 20 eggs in the ovaries, each in its own shell, called the follicles. Next, these hormones, the FSH and LH, also trigger an increase in the production of the female hormone estrogen. As estrogen level rise, like a switch, it turns off the production of a follicle-stimulating hormone. This careful balance of hormones allows the body to limit the number of follicles that mature. Lastly, as the follicle phase progresses, one follicle in one ovary becomes dominant and continues to mature. This dominant follicle suppresses all the other follicles in the group. As a result, they stop growing and die. The dominant follicles continue to produce estrogen. Ovulatory phase of the menstrual cycle. The ovulatory phase or ovulation starts about 14 days after the follicular phase started. The ovulatory phase in the midpoint of the menstrual cycle, with the next menstrual period starting about 2 weeks later. During this phase, the following events occurs. First, the rise in estrogen from dominant follicles triggers a surge in the amount of luteinizing hormone that is produced by the brain. This causes the dominant follicles to release its eggs from the ovary. As the egg is released, a process called ovulation, it is captured by a finger-like projection in the end of the fallopian tube or fimbriae. This fimbriae sweeps the egg into the tube. Also, in this phase, there is an increase in the amount of thickness of mucus produced by the cervix. If a woman have intercourse during this time, the thick mucus captures the man's sperm, nourishes it, and helps it to move towards the egg for fertilization. Luteal phase. The luteal phase of menstrual cycles begin right after ovulation and involves the following process. Once it releases its egg, the empty follicles develop into a new structure called the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum secretes the hormone progesterone. Then progesterone prepares the uterus for a fertilized egg to implant. If intercourse has taken place, and the man's sperm has fertilized the egg, a process called conception. The fertilized egg will travel through the fallopian tube to implant in uterus. Then, the woman is now considered pregnant. If the egg is not fertilized, it passes through the uterus, not needed to support the pregnancy like that. If the egg is not fertilized, it passes through the uterus, not needed to support the pregnancy. The lining of the uterus breaks down and sheds, and the next menstrual period begins. Menopausal. When a woman is 40 to 50 years old, the menstrual cycles become less regular and ovulation does not occur consistently. The cessation of menstrual cycles is called menopause, and the whole time period from the onset of irregular cycles to their complete cessation is called climacteric. The major cause of menopause is age-related changes in ovaries. The number of follicles remaining in the ovaries of menopausal women is small. In addition, the follicles that remain become less sensitive to stimulation of FSH and RH, and therefore fewer mature follicles and corpora luteum are produced. So lastly, how many eggs does a woman have? The vast majority of the eggs within the ovaries steadily die until they deplete with the menopause. At birth, there is approximately 1 million to 2 million eggs. By the time of puberty, only about 300,000 remain. Of this, only about 500 will be ovulated during a woman's reproductive lifetime, and any remaining eggs will gradually die out at menopause. So that's all for female reproductive system. Thank you.